Before the season even started, the Philadelphia 76ers thought they'd reached basketball's promised land. Nearly a decade after launching the process, a plan to lose big, acquire superstars, and win even bigger, the Sixers entered the season with what looked like one of the best rosters in the NBA. They have their MVP in Joel Embiid, the breakout point guard Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George, the top acquisition from this summer's free agent market, a versatile star who could lead the team to its first championship since 1983. Since then, Philadelphia's season has turned disappointing, then dismal, then outright catastrophic. Now, a quarter games into the season, a team that odds makers had pegged as the fourth most likely to win the title is stuck with a losing record. Forget about competing for the championship. The Sixers is one of the worst teams in the league right now, and it's really disappointing. The story of how Philadelphia's season unraveled is a near-perfect storm of high expectations, untimely injuries, and escalating failures. When Daryl Morey signed George to a $212 million contract this summer, he envisioned him as part of an unstoppable trio beside Maxey and Embiid. There was just one problem. Those great players are some of the least reliable in all of basketball. George, who is 34 and in his 15th NBA season, has lately had an injury log as long as his 6'11" wingspan. Embiid has battled ailments throughout his career, robbing him of his first 2 seasons and slowing him during playoff runs. Even before the season began, the Sixers floated plans to hold their aging stars out of back-to-back games. Sure enough, once the games started, the lineups on the floor looked nothing like the roster on paper. Embiid has missed over a dozen games. George has been sidelined for 10. Maxey sat out 2 weeks with a hamstring injury. In all, the star trio had barely played together on the court. In smaller lineups, they've appeared out of sync, posting the 3rd worst offensive rating in the league. A stretch like this would be tough for any franchise to endure. Embiid and the Sixers are synonymous with the process, an initiative planned by former Sixers GM Sam Hinkie to bottom out for a few years, winning less than 20% of their games over 3 seasons, to gather high draft picks, which the team would then use to build the NBA's next juggernaut. The logic was that there is no worse place to be in the NBA than stuck in the middle, reaching the playoffs year after year without making a real run at a championship. Yet somehow, years after Hinkie's tenure yielded the team a run of top 3 draft picks, that's exactly where the Sixers have ended up. Embiid emerged from the process as a superstar, but 2 other top picks, Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz, fizzled in Philadelphia and were sent away. And as the Sixers tried more conventional methods of building around Embiid in the years since Hinkie left the franchise in 2016, bringing in co-stars like James Harden and now George, they've landed in just the NBA purgatory that he feared. Philadelphia has reached 7 consecutive postseasons, but has never once advanced as far as the conference finals. For now, they'd settle for a couple of wins in a row. Even that will be a hard task to accomplish, with a stable of banged-up superstars, a dispirited locker room, an offense that is one of the worst in the league, and a defense that isn't much better. George has been riddled with injuries to sap the excitement the franchise began the season with. Embiid, with the knee afflictions that have dogged his career and will likely continue to do so as he goes deeper into his 30s. That leaves Maxey as the lone star trying to keep the 76ers afloat, as only the Washington Wizards, New Orleans Pelicans, and Utah Jazz have worse records to date. Maxey was supposed to be part of a top-heavy, well-constructed unit, a Sonic-like change of direction from the deliberate George and plotting Embiid. Now, he's sliding to the top of the scouting report every night. It's getting late very early for the Sixers. They need to figure out how to patch things together with the Embiid situation still seemingly in flux. Maxey was leading the league in minutes per game before injuring his hamstring. His first game back in November was rocky, but in the 4 since, production hasn't been a problem. After talking the talk, he's been doing the walking 27.5 points on 47 to 50 to 92 shooting splits with 6.3 assists and 3.3 steals. Embiid received a 3-game suspension for being involved in an altercation with a reporter after the columnist had allegedly written an article with references to Embiid's son, as well as his late brother. Hard to be too critical of Embiid for this, as bad as the optics are. A bigger blight on Embiid was a previous report from Shams Charania, stating Maxey at a team meeting called out Embiid for repeatedly being late to practices and team events. Such friction between superstar teammates is never ideal so early in the season, particularly coming from a player like Maxey, as well as the fact the information leaked at all. It's also concerning considering Embiid's significant injury history. So you'd hope he's more committed to getting his body right and his overall craft than he appears to be on some of those team responsibilities flagged in the report. But it didn't exactly paint the picture of a team player completely committed to delivering the Sixers a championship. This follows Embiid signing a massive 3-year, $193 million extension with Philadelphia, using up an inordinate amount of salary cap for a player with a lot of miles under a big frame that's undergone multiple surgeries. We've seen injuries deteriorate the careers of other NBA bigs over the years, and you do wonder if all those surgeries are starting to catch up to Embiid. If that happens, that near $200 million contract would be some sort of disaster. Whether it was the right move to give him such a paycheck is a tricky one. We know how utterly dominant Embiid is when he's up and running as one of the best players in the NBA. That's never been a question. But unfortunately, Embiid's apex has only come in stretches amid injury after injury. We've seen a lot of centers hit this point, and it usually doesn't end well. As a player gets older and starts carrying more weight and has an injury history, we saw it happen with Andrew Bynum. He was an all-star in 2012, and 2 years later he's out of the league. We're talking about these big, 7'2" bodies with extra weight. Some of the guys we've watched, it ends fast. The only silver lining is that all of the injuries gave Jared McCain, the 16th overall pick, a real opportunity, and he's run with it. Any foolish concerns about his TikTok activity were quickly swept aside after he put up multiple 30-point games and was named Eastern Conference Rookie of the Month. If the Sixers can ever get everyone on the court at the same time, McCain's emergence will give them some real firepower off the bench. But unfortunately, a bigger blow came when the Sixers announced that McCain is out indefinitely because of a lateral meniscus tear in his left knee that will require surgery. That's a devastating blast to the injury-riddled Sixers, as McCain was arguably their biggest bright spot in this otherwise dreary season. McCain has averaged 15.6 points per game and provided a much-needed spark amid the injury drama. It's included McCain averaging 26 points per game as a starter, the most by a rookie since Michael Jordan. The prospect of McCain further beefing up this already star-studded Phillies side at full strength is enticing. It's not something we were expecting before the season, so it adds to the potential and overall upside of the squad if it can overcome this rocky period and get things together. Considering Philadelphia is in the much weaker Eastern Conference, where just 4 teams currently have a winning record, perhaps no contender is as flawed as Philadelphia, with the potential of a serious disaster considering how much money is tied up to its superstars. But at least for this season, the Sixers still have plenty of games to figure things out. This team is still potentially a team to be reckoned with, but it could get to the point where this is so off the rails, they completely get dispirited.